Hello, it's Guy here from Off My Bridge. Today we are looking at the captain's chair, the commanding officer of a starship. They have got some stuff to do. Do they? Do they have a lot to do? Well, they've got more to do than you think, and what it is that they have to do is probably less than you think, except that you really need to think about what others think. Wait, what? Yes, of course, I'm being cryptic. So hit that like button if you like cryptic videos. No. Hit that like button if you like this video. Okay, so moving on. What does the commanding officer have to do? What is their key mandate? Their key mandate is to succeed at the mission objectives and to ensure everybody's survival. That is their key mandate. Their other key mandate is to follow the Prime Directive and to make sure that the Prime Directive is not violated as best as possible, or if it's being bent out of shape, bend it in such a way that it could be bent back again. The Prime Directive is very problematic, but it is something that you have to take into account as a commanding officer, because if you don't, your GM really should bring you up on charges of violating the Prime Directive. How do you fulfill your mission mandate? Well, that's with a series of questions that you need to ask. And the very first question is, what is our mandate? What is our objective? What is our mission? What is our goal? What must we do? Question number one. Question number two, how are we going to do it? Now, this is where being a good commanding officer and being a bad commanding officer split. A bad commanding officer will determine exactly how to do what is required to be done and will issue orders to their crew. Bad commanding officer. A good commanding officer will say, what do we need to do? How are we going to do it? I don't know. So I am going to ask all of my department heads, my tactical officer, my science officer, my engineer, my medical officer, my helmsman, whomever, I'm going to ask them, how do we do this? Because that is your primary role as a commanding officer in Star Trek Adventures 2, is to incorporate and include everybody else at the table in the decision-making process. Now, once you have said, I don't know how to do this, scientist, tell me, how do I achieve this objective? Engineer, give me an answer. Tactical officer, what should we be worried about? Doctor, what are your thoughts? Gather all of the information that they are giving you, and then, and only then, are you then to ask the question, which of these options achieves our objective with the least amount of danger, with the least amount of uncertainty? And if none of them do, go back to the drawing board. Don't settle for second place. Always shoot for first place. Is this going to achieve our objectives? Is it safe? If it isn't, what could we do? How could we mitigate that? And the answers are not to lie upon your shoulders. You are not responsible for finding those solutions. Again, you say to your officers, guys, this is not good enough. I need more information. Go find out more. Find different solutions. Work on options for me so that when we get to said objective, we are in the best possible place. You are delegating all of the rolling to others. Once you have done this, once you have established what needs to be done, who needs to be doing it, you then need to ask yourself the next most important question as a commanding officer: what can I do to help everybody else? What can I do to help everybody else? Being the commanding officer is not about being in charge. It is about supporting everybody else so that when you make the decisions, those decisions are the best decisions you possibly can. Remember, when you are first faced with a go to the system and scan it, there is an infinite number of choices that you have available to you as to what you could be preparing for, right? So you can't make a decision based on infinity. There's too much going on. An infinite decision would be an infinite answer. So you have to limit it. And the way you limit it is by getting your other officers involved. They will limit things down. The scientist will go and do research on the nebula and discover that there's all these kinds of things. The tactical officer is going to give you information. They're going to limit down the number of decisions that you have to make. They are going to focus down the problem until eventually you are just choosing between option A, B, C, or D rather than option infinity. So those are the kinds of questions you should be asking. Once you've gone through all of those questions, you then should be asking, what is the situation that we are currently in? And again, get that information from your officers. And how do we capitalize on it? How do we make this the most advantageous situation to be in? What do we need to do to change, to alter, to adjust, to adapt? That's what we need to do. And again, you're not providing the solutions. You are simply asking for the opinions of your fellow officers and then choosing whichever opinion you feel to be the safest and most applicable to the situation. That is your responsibility. You are choosing between options. You're not creating options necessarily. Now, that is not to say that you can't give some suggestions. What if we did X, Y, and Z? But throw it out to your team. Let them decide whether that's going to work or not. Let them research whether that's going to work or not. Assist them in solving the situation. Assist them with coming up with options. Again, that is the critical thing, is teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. You are the linchpin around which everybody else will gravitate, and so you have to make sure that you're giving everybody something to do. So what does this mean for you during downtime? The ship's at warp, you've got 3 weeks before you arrive at the furthest outpost of the Federation. What should you be doing? Well, the very first thing is running around making sure that everybody has got what they need to do. They are researching, they are answering questions. If you find that there is an officer who goes, well, I did some research, but I hit a dead end. Okay, well, how can we undead end it? How can we live end it so that we have a new line of inquiry? What was the reason for the dead end? What can we do to avoid that dead end? How can we dig deeper? Right? So you're there to motivate the crew to go further. You're also there to make sure that the crew's morale remains good. Now, this is something that really doesn't come into play unless your GM is doing it, which is the crew morale. However, it does give you something to do, and it gives you some interactivity with the NPCs that are on your ship, which is quite a lot of fun to do. And then, of course, you've got to have your own little personal projects, whether it's archaeology or floral arranging or painting or music or a combination thereof. It's up to you, but your character should have a hobby that they can pursue or try to pursue whilst being the captain. But you need to make sure that the rest of the people sitting around that table know that they can ask you for help and that your character will happily go and help them. Now that you know what you should be doing in your downtime, what should you be doing during combat? Ship combat is where the captain truly shines as the linchpin around which everything else centers, as the center of the bridge, but who's not actually doing anything. That's the key. All you're doing is you're helping. The key thing with the captain is the assist. You can help 2 characters gain extra dice. That's insane. You can add your role to the tactical officer's role or the helmsman's role or both. That is a really powerful skill, but it's not. And something that you mustn't think of it as is the captain getting up and standing over the helmsman's shoulder going, oh, I think you should do this. It's not the captain telling the tactical officer to aim for the underside of the ship. It's the captain sitting in the chair saying to Helm, make us invisible to the enemy, make us move in on the enemy, make us evade combat, take us in at your discretion. Tactical, I want you to target their most sensitive areas or focus your fire on their weapons. Throwing out those kinds of statements, but making it very clear to the players around the table, you are assisting. And you are doing so by being the commanding officer, by coordinating the efforts of the bridge crew. You've got the direct command. Direct is very useful if you are really trying to do something quite specific, usually firing twice. The tactical officer can only fire once. They can only take that major action. Here you now say, I am directing. Go ahead, do that action again. Really, really useful. You don't have to spend so much momentum as you would normally to take a second action. So that's quite useful. And of course, rally. Rally is just there to build momentum. Sometimes you just need buckets of momentum, especially in space combat, to increase damage, to avoid damage, all those kinds of things. So rally is a good way of just building momentum. But again, don't just sit there and say, I use the rally command, boop, oh, I've got an extra 3 momentum. No. I use the rally command, Cool, I got an extra 3 momentum. Right, crew, this is our moment. We've got this. Tactical, you prepared for this. Science, you know exactly what's going on. Helm, you are the best helmsman in the fleet. Show us what you have. Give a little speech. Rally the players. Rally the troops. It's kind of your thing, or at least it should be anyway. So those are the fun little orders that you can give during combat. Creating traits. I feel that the commanding officer, yeah, you can create some traits, no doubt about it, but your other skills, building momentum, rallying, giving extra orders, those kinds of things, those are really, really, really useful. Anyway, traits that I would look into are two-dimensional thinking. This comes straight from Star Trek Wrath of Khan, where you order the ship to attack on the Z-axis or the Z-axis, and you're coming straight on top of the ship or from underneath the ship. All that this does is it reduces the difficulty of your next weapon's attack by 1. So torpedoes down by 1 or phasers down by 1 as your ship is attacking from a different vector to the vectors that everybody else normally expects them to attack from. It's a fun little trait. It should only last for 1 round and then the enemy will become wise to it. Transponder code modifications, used it during combat, maybe not so much, but out of combat and just before combat could work. Changing the transponder of the ship changes the ship's visible signature on scan. So we're no longer a warship, we're now a Kuberian freighter. We are no longer a freighter, we are now a warship armed to the teeth with photon torpedoes. Doing that kind of stuff, creating this impression of being something that is not, could work until the enemy actually do a scan at close range and decide or discover that you are not what you appear to be. Another trait which you could create in the middle of combat, because this does sometimes happen, is aggressive posturing. And what this is an order to helm and to tactical to make the ship look as if it's ready to explode in terms of dealing damage. It's ready to come swooping in and just attack the enemy, but you then hail the enemy. And so aggressive posturing is creating a trait that gives your critical range an increase of 1 when trying to intimidate or to deceive your opponent's captain in a social conflict kind of situation. So the ship is about to attack, hail them. Let them know that we're about to destroy them, but I want to talk first. Create that trait and suddenly the talk goes in your way because the enemy believes your ship is about to annihilate them. I believe the Romulans use this tactic a lot and it's really, really, really cool. So those are the traits that I would look at creating if you're a commander. But again, all of those other orders that you're doing are just so useful in combat. It would be hard pressed to think that these traits will have value outside of specific case scenarios. That's it from me on looking at the different officers and what you can and can't do with them, and for some inspiration. I hope you found this entire series really useful and helpful. If you did, let me know in the comments down below, and also let me know what commands you might give to your captain or your commanding officer, things that you might do in downtime. Let us share and grow together. If you want me to look at other smaller, minor departments, let's say communications officers, counselors, those kinds of roles, I am happy to do so. Let me know in the comments down below. Until next week, a huge thank you to my wonderful patrons, and of course to you for watching all the way through until the very end. Until next week, long life and happy gaming.